That was actually a quick fix. I'm glad I caught that before I did like 2 hours. How many times have I done that? Well, yeah, at least 3. All right, where were we? But yeah, what were we saying? I don't even remember what I was saying before this. But yeah, it did feel cringe. Like something about this just didn't feel right. What it just feels inappropriate is what I said. Yeah.
Little anecdotes about a story that just so happens you know to support your current actions is awfully convenient. You know, he said one of Trump's closest advisors was vocally advocating for us not to go to war with Iran and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis. Again, we don't know this. It's all hearsay. I would suspect that Charlie Kirk did not support a war with Iran. You know, that's not a crazy thing to believe. It was that the last, oh, it's just so emotional. The last thing he said. Here he is 3 months ago, or a few months ago, saying that Iran is a threat.
They're still registering for the draft, aren't they? Like that's the logical conclusion to the direction that we're heading in right now, unless we make some serious changes.
I mean, I've already heard rumors that Fifth Group.
I didn't realize he was on Sean Ryan. I might have to go back and watch that because I don't really know who Joe Ken is, if I'm going to be honest.
Is going to be sent.
I don't think a lot of people do. We kind of know the name.
The guys to Iraq because of the escalated situation with Iran now.
Yeah. I mean, most Americans aren't aware of it. Our troops in Iraq and Syria have been attacked 150 plus times by Iranian proxies. And when we say
3 months ago, this is what he said. Now he's like, oh, I quit. We can't go to war with Iran. I'm just saying I have questions. Again, in the last 3 months, could Joe Kenton have learned something new that changed his mind? Yes. Did he reveal what that information was on his interview with Tucker Carlson? No, he did not. I was left unconvinced that maybe there's a reason that he can't say publicly. You know? But again,
I don't know. Jeremy, I don't.
I'm hoping that one of these interviews, he's more clear about, hey, this is specifically what happened in the last 90 days. Because 90 days ago, I was on Sean Ryan's show saying that Iran is a major threat. And now I'm saying they're no threat at all. You know?
I don't.
That's why people are asking questions. And I'm not saying he's lying. I'm just saying I need more information. But this is the thing he said about Charlie Kirk that I thought was very interesting, and I was able to independently verify it.
Not saying
no, I don't think you are,
because of this happened. I'm not saying President Trump's closest advisors, who is vocally advocating for us to not go to war with Iran and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis. And then he's suddenly publicly assassinated, and
he's doing the Candace thing where he's implying Israel did it with zero evidence. Again,
my thing is everybody's got such a definite answer on this, and I have no idea. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Who am I to be like to actually say that I know exactly what happened? That what they're saying is a full-on lie about Charlie. Still to this day, it's kind of like JFK. It's like could be anyone. It could have been the kid. It could have been. It looked like when I first saw it, I said it looked like a clean hit. So I was thinking it might have been higher up, but I don't know. It could have been the kid, for all I know.
If he has evidence, he should share it, but he doesn't, and he hasn't. He's just implying, well, he didn't want to go with Iran, so there are millions of people that didn't want to go to war with Iran. Why Charlie Kirk? Why did Israel only get Charlie Kirk when there's lots of other people? How about Dave Smith, who's very vocally? How come Israel didn't get Dave Smith? How come you need more? A spectacular claim needs to have spectacular evidence. But what I hear, I'm trying to find.
I get that. That's it's a burden of proof. You like if you're making that sort of claim, the burden of proof is on you. So, but that's But if they're right, they're a true friend, you know. It's just hard. It's really hard to find an absolute on either side without having like full on evidence.
Here, this is the one. This is the clip.
And then, Charlie Kirk is killed publicly in a very horrific way. And we're not really even allowed to look into that at all. And Charlie Kirk was one of President Trump's closest advisors, and he also advocated heavily against a war with Iran.
So that's the implication, is that they killed him because they wanted to go to war with Iran, which is ridiculous. There's zero evidence of that. And there's innumerable people online who are very, very publicly against this war. Taking Charlie Kirk's voice out of that mix would not have mattered. Like, it's ridiculous. All right, so I'm just going to say on the face of that, I would tell Joe Kent to his face that that's a nonsense thing to float.
He was in the Oval Office in the lead up to the 12-day war. I wasn't particularly close with Charlie. He was very gracious to me when I was running for Congress, very, very supportive. So we knew each other. And the last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in the West Wing, in the stairway. And I said hi to him, and he looked me in the eye, and he said very loudly, and it's a small, you've been in the West Wing, it's small, it's a tight space. And he said, "Joe, stop us from getting into a war with Iran," very loudly.
He was single-minded.
And he walked off, and he went, I believe, into the Oval.
I think he was vocal about like what was going on with Iran, but I don't know, pretty fairly soon before he went. So it's not an unbelievable story. It is a little bit weird on the flip-flop, unless the timing is off. Maybe Jeremy's wrong on this.
So when one of President Trump's closest advisors, who is vocally advocating for us to...
Again, he's just implying that Israel did it.
Not go to war.
Or that the U.S. government did it.
With Iran.
And yeah, that is pretty dangerous to be dropping out and saying that type thing because of Charlie.
And for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis. And then he's suddenly publicly assassinated, and we're not allowed to ask any questions about that. It's a data point. It's a data point that we need to look into.
What do you mean when you say we're not allowed to ask any questions about that?
We've been told that this individual, Robinson, is a lone gunman, and maybe he is.
Sure. I mean, the world's #1 podcast, or #3 by real numbers, but still extremely popular, has been doing nothing but asking questions about Charlie Kirk's assassination for the past 5 months. Okay, so this idea that we're not allowed to ask questions is flippin' absurd. But this part, he says, is verifiable.
Investigation that I was a part of, the National Counterterrorism Center was a part of, we were stopped from continuing to investigate. And the FBI will say that they stopped that because they wanted to have turn everything over to the Utah state authorities. Everything's going to trial. It's very, very sensitive. But there was still a lot for us to look into that I can't really get into. But there was still...
How convenient.
...linkage for us to investigate that we needed to run down. And I'm not making any conclusions. I'm not saying...
No, I don't think you are.
Because of this happened. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying there's unanswered questions. We know the pressure because of the text messages that have been made public, that Charlie was under a lot of pressure from a lot of pro-Israel donors. And again, we know Charlie was advocating to President Trump against this war with Iran.
So the one thing he did say about the investigation being kind of shut down, the counter-terrorists, that is true. You can find it reported back in October of 2025, not that long after September the 10th. Kash Patel shuts down Charlie Kirk foreign intelligence probe, an explosive feud with Trump's counter-terror chief. That's him. Like, this is true. This is verifiable. Kent's investigation alarmed Patel, who believed that Joe Kent was overstepping by interfering with an ongoing FBI investigation. So what he's saying there is true and verifiable. The Times spoke with supporters of Kent who claim he was doing his job by chasing out any leads to ensure no foreign groups were involved in Kirk's assassination. Agree. I agree. But then you go on a podcast and you insinuate, well, it was Israel that did it. I don't think that that's, the same level of professionalism. I think he should have been allowed to complete his investigation. But if he has evidence that there's a foreign government involved, why wouldn't he have said anything about it? Sounds like they did investigate it and he found nothing. The Times spoke with supporters of Kent after Patel discovered that Kent had gone through FBI case material related to the Kirk incident. A tense White House meeting was held to discuss the matter. A roundtable meeting between Kash Patel, by the way, who should be fired, Joe Kent, Tulsi Gabbard, and Vice President J.D. Vance, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, and senior DOJ officials was held at the White House. Kent told administration officials that he was granted access to the FBI.
Yeah, they did an investigation on Joe Kent. Kash Patel did, I think. Was that today?
FBI files by a, quote, low-ranking agency official. So he was never officially asked to look into it. The White House meeting was so tense that little was accomplished, according to the Times. Trump administration officials are worried that Kent's probe into foreign interference could provide ammunition to Robinson's defense lawyers, who could then argue more than one suspect was involved. I don't care about that. I think it's worth investigating, but I'm going to need a little bit more than a conversation that nobody else heard that conveniently supports my current narrative happened, and so therefore everything else I say is true. Like, it has slime ball energy.
Yeah, I will say it seems convenient timing for when shit hit the fan. Then, I mean, unless the timing's off and we're missing something, but yeah, if he's right, it does seem a little convenient.
But maybe there's something we don't know. Let me know what you think. Do you think Joe Kent's out on the podcast circuit?
I just don't know who he is, so I don't really have much judgment. And there's been so much news, like I missed a week, and it's like, what the hell happened? I got to catch up on so much. Apparently we're at war with Iran. It's like, I know it's been more than a week, but yeah. Again.
To Clout Crab?
Again.
Do you think he really knows something that is, that he can't?
Who knows? Who knows? I'll have to, if he was on Sean Ryan, we'll have to go back and watch that one. It gives you a better take of somebody, who they are when you get to see them for like 2 hours. A lot of people are sleazy and they can make it through that type of thing. That's what politicians do. But a lot of times, I mean, there's a reason why Kamala never sat down with Joe. There's a reason. But Sean, you could get it past him. It's better. That's why Joe Rogan is king. It's because he will pick apart who you are. It's because he's such a personable guy. If you're a fake person, he will figure it out. Yeah, what are we doing first with these? There's a few interesting ones. Probably leave that one for last. Yeah, let's just do this one first. I think this was yesterday.
Graphic novel, Unwanted. It's home children except with the written consent of the parents. And it was like, oh, because I'm with you. So as I'm like, nap, wake up, trots. And then I wake up Saturday and the U.S. is and Israel are bombing Iran. And I'm looking at Delirious. I'm like, I can't deal with this right now. And I am very concerned with the Iranian situation, even at the same time being very hopeful for the Persian people who are awesome and badass. And I'm like, Peter, I'm not doing so great. And you said, yeah, you're probably talking to the exact wrong person because I'm with you. So, sir, the floor is. And by the way, we're recording this on Friday. It's going to be dated by the time it drops, because the news is happening so quickly, so fast, and every day it's something else.
I can't keep up.
Yesterday, I don't know if people saw this, Trump was tweeting out that no genital mutilation on children except with the written consent of the parents. And it was like, oh, I can't anymore. Go, please. I've said enough.
That's not a joke? I thought I got Malice, but no, that was real.
I know.
You have the floor.
I know.
Oh boy.
So I'm no expert in Iran, but I do think that there are some very
no way he tweeted that.
Nasty elements. And as much as I try to make this apolitical, there are some very nasty elements on the left who do not have the best interests of the Iranian people in mind. And it's not merely that they object to U.S. military intervention in the region. It's that they have some bizarre support of these pre-medieval religious maniacs. And so I'm deeply disturbed by that when I see them, as all civilized people should be, protest on the streets of major cities in the West.
Yeah, I hear you, but I'm the major cities in the West currently are not, violence centers. And as something else we were talking about before we started, where I see something that I don't think people have mentioned before, which I'm very terrified about, is President Trump has been very vocal about encouraging people in Iran to step up and overthrow the regime. He also knows perfectly well that this very same regime just recently killed thousands of those.
So I'm seeing claims about that tweet and that he took it down. That yeah, basically it was like a recently deleted tweet. But it's like I'm not seeing the tweet, so maybe we'll keep digging.
Those people, and the U.S. has a history, Afghanistan being the most recent example, of saying, "Hey, work with us. We're the U.S. We're the good guys," and people do that. And then as soon as they're expendable, the Kurds were left holding back. I think in 2019 or whatever it was. As soon as they're expendable, it's like, all right, deuces. And not even that. Sometimes they're handed over as bargaining chips. So
Yeah.
I think U.S. foreign policy has often been extremely cynical behind the scenes, and that is my just concern is I it doesn't seem like that they know how to stick this landing.
So the name of that group was Neville Roy Shingham, and they're funding both of the sides. They're funding pro, if you can believe this, pro Iranian regime and the protests in the United States. I'm not sure, from one of the holdovers of the Powell Doctrine, overwhelming force, clear exit strategy. I'm not sure we have a clear exit strategy. I think that a lot of this is just hope that, and I agree with the hope, and I'm sure you agree with the hope that the Iranians will build their future. I'm not sure under a monarchy is the way to go, but I'm, again, no expert in this whatsoever. I am deeply disturbed about the possibility of American troops on the ground. I don't know the other. I don't know the option if the Iranian people don't wake up and revolt. I remember I was just reading something about being on a train, and women were not wearing a hijab, and one of the religious police came by.
Oh, the police.
And fortunately, we struck the main building of the religious police, and the women shouted at the guy and kicked him off the train. Why they didn't throw him off of a moving train is
wait. That was a metaphor. I thought he meant the actual police. I was like, wait, like you mean like Sharia law over there? Like, were they actually wearing a uniform and they were by the state, or was it Sharia law? Like they're just a bunch of guys trying to enforce it because they're Muslim.
Beyond me. I would have completely thrown him off the train while it was moving.
My guess is the latter.
If they're not even willing to do that, I don't know. But I do know that Iranians who come to America are, by and large, incredibly well educated, lower incarceration rates, higher contributions to the Treasury. They tend to be model citizens. Oh, and just as a parenthetical, every single Iranian I have ever met in my whole life, without exception, and that is a considerable number, have been extraordinarily knowledgeable about politics. So if you ever get in an Uber or something and the driver's Iranian, just start talking about politics. It's really uncanny. But I, like you, I wish the Iranian people well. I have no access to the Trump administration. My only hope is that they can overthrow these maniacs as quickly as possible. Actually, I have a hidden hope in that they all swing from lampposts for what they've done to the people for the last decades. But I don't know. I don't want troops on the ground like yourself. But I do think, in balance, I'm against military options, but this is probably the right way to go.
But I'm also extremely concerned because Iran is now Iran because of regime change. Because the argument was the Shah's intolerable, he's this dictator, blah blah blah. Anything's better than that. And 1979 comes along, and the idea that you can't get worse than what they have now is not at all true. Like the alternative to the Ayatollah, that dial can get turned up even more. If they were even more violent or fundamentalist or interventionist or who knows what, the idea that like we could go to Pol Pot or something like that, like it does often get worse. So, and when you have a nation that's being bombed, a lot of times you're going to double down and support the people in power because at least those are your people. So this is kind of where, my head is at, and I'm sure the head is of a lot of people, watching this right now.
Yeah, and again, I'm not sure anybody should listen to my unlettered opinion on this. I'm just not an expert. I mean, I have a lot of opinions on it, but the older I get, the more I realize that,
it seems to be repeating itself, though. This seems to kind of be an event that's a revolving door.
It's funny. It's like people will write criticisms of Greta Thunberg or Cenk Unger, and I'm always like, Cenk is wrong about this. Who gives a fuck about Cenk? I mean, they've not written books about it. They have nothing they're not experts in the area, so why would you even listen to them? And I'm always fascinated when people.
Well, it's because they have a following. I think that would be the argument.
Criticize. I just think these people are just best ignored. And so I think I'm probably in the category of people who should be best ignored, because I have opinions and I have impulses. And I actually have been following this story somewhat, I wouldn't say very closely, but somewhat closely for the last 20 years. But I just don't think, I just don't think anybody should listen to anything I have to say on it.
Well, that's going to be kind of tricky for this podcast. I mean, okay, folks.
I mean, out of time. I love his laugh, by the way. He's got such a great chuckle. Yeah, gold star.
Yeah, it's like you showed up to a job and you're like, yeah, I'm not really looking for work. It's like, okay, like I don't know.
Yeah, but I do think there's something really important about figuring out whose voice doesn't matter, right? And
if your question was sincere, I can answer it. Why people care what Cenk Uygur or Greta Thunberg have to say? It's it's the politics version of sports. So there's a
Michael, what do you have in your room, buddy? Like, he's just got a mannequin right behind him. My mind goes in like a few different directions. It could just be completely professional for one of his ads, or it could just be Michael Malice.
Red Sox fan or a Yankees fan, and people's sense of identity was, I got the Yankees jacket on.
I used to have a friend named Jordan. It would be one of those questions with him, like, Jordan, what's behind you? You know what? I don't want to know. Just keep going.
I'm a Greta fan or I'm a Cenk fan. That's how people. That's their lens through which they process information.
But every time you do that, you amplify the lens. You, like Candace Owens, you increase the voice of somebody whose voice shouldn't be increased. Like every criticism you make, you're just making that person's platform grow. So why would you do that? I just ignore all these people.
Because why wouldn't you want the Yankees to win the World Series?
Well, because I think this is where the analogy breaks down. I don't think it's as simple as rank tribalism. If you really want to, and if you're a thoughtful, reasonable, sane, intelligent person,
Hold on. I'm going to cut you off because that is the biggest if I've ever heard in my life. The percentage of people who are what you just described is like 2%.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad you brought that up, because the number of people I've seen criticize Candace Owens or criticize people who not only do they not know what they're talking about, but they're just completely insane, and you should never listen to them at all. The number of people who criticize them, it's kind of like, when my
But again, like without evidence, I don't know if what they're saying is true. So the criticisms could be right, but the criticisms on their side are just as strong. They're so absolute that it's just like, well, how the hell do you know?
Dad died. I was at his wake, and the people there, this is many years ago, were talking to me about Milo Yiannopoulos. The only thing that made Milo Yiannopoulos is the fact that people protested Milo Yiannopoulos. If nobody ever protested Milo Yiannopoulos, you'd never know who he was. If nobody ever commented on that lunatic Cenk's tweets, or I mean, he would just fade into obscurity. So why are you amplifying the voices of people with whom, like, you think these people are on your other tribe because they have fundamental disagreements with you, and you think that they're fools, and in many aspects they are, but you could gain more traction and be a more serious person if you just advocated for those people who actually knew what they were talking about, like Mike Duran.
I don't think that. I think you're operating from an enlightenment model that I completely disagree with. I don't
Okay,
think that
tell me
human
why.
beings, sure, I don't think human beings are truth-seeking animals. I think they are narrative-seeking animals. And if someone has a narrative,
I guess it just depends on who. Because for me, it's all like I'm just after the truth, but I see so many people that just get caught in the echo chambers, and you can show them verifiable truth, and they'll just. I've seen somebody just walk away. He unfriended me. It's like I would. It's like one sentence showing that what you're saying is wrong, and it's like, okay, if that's the route you want to take, but that one, my jaw dropped on that one because I didn't know how to take it at the time. I was like, I just couldn't believe that. I was like, it's verifiable evidence. Why are you mad at me? Like, this is weird. But all right, so people just want to be in those narratives. They want to be in the echo chambers. It's a very weird phenomenon, and it scares the hell out of me, honestly, because there's no reasoning with people at that point if they want to be stuck in it.
that I find preferable to another, it might not be more honest, but it might be more entertaining. And it's much
True.
more entertaining for me. I'm for me, just Mr. Not me, Michael Malice, but someone to think about.
Yeah.
Oh, does Brigitte Macron have a wang? And that's a cool, interesting story. You're laughing, right? Because it's an interesting story. Then, like, who cares who the First Lady of France is? So that's a very easy answer why someone might be interested. And the thing is,
it's such a distraction and such a waste of time. And I get why people are getting pissed off about it, because I think even Alex Jones is freaking out about it. He's like, dude, I'm just trying to stop World War III. I don't care about, this or that. And I think it was about Charlie Kirk. He's like, I'm very sorry. It's a very serious situation. And if you guys ever figure it out, let me know. And I don't know if this was Alex Jones. I might be butchering her. There might have been somebody else I listened to, but they were just saying, it's like, if you guys figure it out, let me know. But we just have more important things to worry about right now. And that's, I think, what Michael is saying about the whole Macron peen.
Jon Stewart did this very effectively during the Bush years when you had the Daily Show clowning George W. Bush every day with good reason, and the other people are miserable, stick in the muds. You're going to go with the guys who are having a good time.
Yeah.
So when someone is telling,
the laughter is it's so much, unless it's the laughter for evil, like, and you can tell the laughter most of the time is just like, dude, you guys just want to fight it out. I'm gonna be over here, and we'll be over here having fun, and we're gonna try and figure out a couple solutions while we're laughing.
a great, compelling story or interesting story or something, whatever it is, conspiracies, especially the flat Earth. My God, that's fascinating. Like every pilot on Earth has to be in on it. Like it's really involved.
My mom's a flight attendant. I was like, something you're not telling me?
That's going to have a big audience, and the internet and the algorithms incentivize that. People don't want boring. They want to feel like they're members of the initiates. This has been a thing since the Greek times, where you're initiated into a faith.
Yeah, I want to disagree with you, and I want to disagree with you profoundly, because the only opportunity for hope is to disagree with you. But I don't disagree with you. I think that that's absolutely correct. I mean, if you wanted to be a serious person and take an honest look at ideas, you would read both sides of the issue, or at least listen to people on both sides of the issue, and then find people who are qualified to speak about those things, and then amplify those views. But I do think we're narrative seeking creatures. And I laughed at the Brigitte Macron because we were just in France, and I asked many friends.
And again, I just think it's who you are, and you could make a percentage weight, be like, is it 50-50, or is it more like 595 type thing? Because not a lot of people are after the truth.
People, if they thought,
but they are there. I swear they are there. If I'm there, then somebody else is too. I know it, because people are genuine. You can tell who is and who isn't. That's why you can see right through the media. Anybody who's like a legacy news outlet, it's just like, you're lying, aren't you? Yeah, you're lying.
Brigitte Macron had a penis. And many people do. When we were in the slums, they did think that Brigitte Macron had a penis. So there is something alluring about that. And it's funny. and it's interesting, but we're also talking about trafficking in people's lives, trafficking in our fellow Americans' lives, and at some point, it just very, very quickly, there's a difference between talking about Brigitte, whether or not Brigitte Macron is a penis, and talking about bombing civilians and civilian infrastructure. And but I do think you're right. I do think we're narrative-seeking creatures, but I also think that it is incumbent upon us to have more of a call for honesty and sincerity and seriousness when we're dealing with these. I mean, look, this is why we're in this is one of the reasons we're in the mess that we're in right now. So I find the whole thing rather disturbing. We've given people social media tools that allow them to amplify the stupidest of people. Candace Owens is just insane. And then we've given people tools like, again, social media. I'm thinking Nick Fuentes.
That's what I was just.
We've given Nick Fuentes.
They're going to bring him up.
It's interesting.
Who's we though? I don't. Who's we? This is where I think you and I disagree.
Well, there are many countries, France, New Zealand, Australia, who either want to or are in the process of banning social media.
Well, for kids, not entirely.
For kids, correct? Yeah, right. For kids.
Sure.
And in the case of Australia, just as an aside, they want to ban all social media, but not Blue Sky. So I'll let you think about what that
but
means.
I also, Peter, I think you and I are both old enough to know that I bet you a significant amount of money that every kid is going to be able to in 5 seconds find workarounds for that.
Yeah, and they're going to figure it out.
They're not going to be prosecutable.
They're going to figure it out.
Yeah, maybe, but that's the we, right? The we is we've enabled people to amplify the voices of the stupidest people, as opposed to enable them to amplify the voices of people who've given the idea a lifetime of scholarly consideration and experience in those countries and who speak the language. Like when we go around the world and we talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, for example, I'm amazed how many people don't even know the rudiments or don't even know from the river to the sea, what river, what sea. So I just think we need to be more mindful about how we approach it, given the existential stakes. I mean, we're literally talking about something life and death. So why would we want to amplify the voices of people who are fools? Cenk is a fool. Why would we want to amplify his voice?
Well, okay,
I was watching Cenk's freakouts yesterday. Who is he freaking out on? I think it just had to do with. It was. Oh God, what's that guy's name? He's the young Republican Chad. That's just. Ben Johnson. I'm probably gonna be butchering the name. Ben something maybe, but he's always wearing the blue tux or whatever. And yeah, Cenk Whopper freak out yesterday. It was pretty entertaining.
Point taken, but
it was on Piers Morgan if anybody's ever interested.
I
need to start covering those more because those are straight up Jerry Springer. I need to get the gavel out wherever that thing is.
Don't like that word we, because I don't think there is this community, even if you're just going to say Americans, that is interested in truth or goodness, or there ever has been. I think when you're saying what I'm saying, that there's no hope, I think if you're complaining that like a tree can't read, that's kind of on you. This is the human condition in my view, and it always has been the human condition.
I guess that's a fundamental disagreement we should explore. Way back to Aristotle's Metaphysics, I think the first line is something like, all people desire to know.
That's nonsense.
Think we do want. I think no. I mean, everybody wants to know. It's just
if you ask anybody, they'll be like, oh, of course I want to know. Well, maybe not everybody, because a lot of people would be like, nope, I've seen it. I don't want to know. But most people would be like, no, I want to know. But when it comes down to brass tacks, like, no, they don't want to know. They just want to be comfortable. They what is it? They'd rather seek security than freedom. I mean, that's basically what that is.
That everybody is. You don't think that's true?
No, really? That's insane. Have you left your house?
Yeah.
What, you don't. So you don't think people want to know what's true?
No, I want people desperately want to avoid knowing what's true. They want to know what is of utility for them to put food on the table. And if they have to smile and nod and say absurdities, they'll say it so long they'll get hoarse.
Most people.
But that doesn't mean they don't want to know it's true. That just means that they're performing something to satisfy their whatever their material needs are.
It's easier to put on the honest performance if you don't know what the truth is. That's a evolutionary psychology perspective.
I don't
Yeah, well, and that's why I think a lot of people are religious. I'm not saying most people, but I think a lot of people are religious because they don't want to they don't want to face the philosophy and the existentialism of questioning all of it before you actually come to God. I think that's the healthiest way, but also I don't know. It's not for everybody, I guess.
I don't I don't think that that's true. I mean, I'm thinking of the Terror Museum in Budapest, in which
Okay.
I mean, there are just so many examples. And I've been spending a lot of time in Eastern Europe, and the
Sure.
terrible suffering of those people under the
That book's
communists.
about
I
it. The
mean,
book right behind, you can't see, but the book behind me, The White Pill, is about the rise and fall of the Soviet Union.
yeah. So there's some horrific things there, and people even then, in the most extreme of circumstances, through torture, etc., they wanted to know what's true. They wanted to figure out. You don't think
Some
so?
of
You
them,
think people are
some of
happy in
them
their own
want,
delusions?
some of them wanted to know what's true, and others were perfectly happy to turn in their neighbors for that extra loaf of bread.
That's fair. That's
I
fair.
don't think those things are mutually exclusive. So I guess the disagreement boils down to, you think people don't want to know what's true. They want to believe things that yield them utility. And
Yes,
I think people want both. I think if people know what's true, it's easier for them to figure out what yields utility than just shutting off their brain.
it's
I mean,
harder.
I've literally talked to just at this point, not even tens, but hundreds of thousands of people. And I think that there are impediments for people to figure out what's true, like morality
Sure.
or belonging, or that they want
I
to.
will give credit to Peter here because he has talked to a lot of people, and he's a professor too. So it's like the amount of actual personal interactions he's had in his entire life is like a millionfold, probably, to Michael.
Belong more than they want to know what's true, or they want a virtue signal, etc. And so there is a kind of self-deception in which people convince themselves that a man is a woman, or whatever
They are.
derangement they want to convince themselves
They
of.
are. It's ma'am.
But when they convince themselves of that, they're also convincing themselves of something that they believe is true.
Right.
Right. So I don't I can I'm trying to think of an example. So in the literature, this is called doxastic volunteerism in the philosophy literature, and the idea is that you can willingly choose your beliefs. So if I may give it a couple of examples.
Please.
So
I think I've heard of that.
because I think that this speaks to the nature of our disagreement. So let's say that you and your girlfriend are going to go. So are you in Austin now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you call me sir. I work for a living. It's the gray hair. I get the sir. So you guys want to go to Houston for a vacation, right? You want to
Okay.
go to Houston for a vacation. And
Alchemist?
so you get in your car and you drive. And when you're 60% of the way to Houston, your girlfriend says to you, "Oh shit, Michael, did we turn off the stove?" And you're thinking, but there's something in, and you don't know if you turned off the stove, but you don't want to drive 60% of the way back. So you kind of convince yourself you didn't really choose the belief. It's that doxa from the Greek is belief. You convince yourself that you shut off the stove so you can have a happy vacation with your girlfriend. So I mean, there are numerous examples of people who choose to believe something. I'm actually kind of making your point for you, but there are numerous
Yeah,
examples of yeah. But that's what happens when you talk to someone and you're interested in truth, right? So I'm not
no,
wedded to
no.
my belief.
This,
You could
I'm
be
sorry.
totally right.
This
Yeah.
makes. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be that guy, but I have to be that guy because this analogy makes zero sense for me. First of all, this is one
Yeah.
of one stove or not is life or death,
Yeah.
and it is
Yeah.
something that has no point broader than something that's happening today. This doesn't affect my job, doesn't affect my philosophy. This is something that no one disagrees with, that it's good not to have the stove. Second
Okay.
of all,
Then let me give you another example.
sure.
Uh, uh,
Yeah, I'll tell
I
you an
think
example. I'll give you an example.
okay,
Right?
you give me example.
I'll give you an easy one. Does this dress make me look fat? I'm not interested in the truth. And in fact, it's easier for me to pull off that line with the reply with a straight face if I've convinced myself she looks good in that dress.
Okay. All right, I'm going to bracket that because I'm going to come back to that example with my example.
Okay, sure.
Your girlfriend comes home one night and she's in a hurry to get out the next day, and she just throws her clothes in, and you want to do a load of laundry, and you throw her clothes in the washing machine, and you realize that you find a condom in her pocket, and you say to her, and you're very happy, you have a great relationship. You say to her, is this your condom? Is this, did you, what, what do you know about this? She said, no. It's not my condom. It's my friend's. She gave it to me to, that she gave it to me because she didn't want her boyfriend to find it. You're like, okay, whatever. It's not us, so it doesn't really matter to me. So
be a little
unbeknownst
suspicious.
to you, just as an aside, unbeknownst to you, she's telling you the truth, because when she fucks her lover, they never use a condom. But it's one of those things that you would persuade yourself. You'd think to yourself, well, my relationship is great. I want to believe her because I want to sustain my happiness.
If you're like me, instead of learning to skateboard, you wish you were learning to write code. Instead of scraping through college, you wish you bought Bitcoin at less than a cent or secured a few NVIDIA shares before they boomed. We might be the FOMO generation, but don't miss out on protecting your future, because for around the same price per month, importance vis-a-vis the future of the relationship. People regarding politics or things like that, knowing true or false, I'm not in a position to literally pick the president or my senator. I can have my preferences and vote, but it's going to be largely out of my hands. All politics out of my hands. So it's a completely different framework than a one-on-one intimate relationship.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I was giving that example, because I thought if you would agree to that example, you would agree to lesser examples. Like if you would agree of something that you're completely emotionally involved in and invested in, and if you're willing to lie to yourself about that, what else wouldn't you be willing to lie to yourself about?
Right, but that's the point. Is if you're saying people are,
I know I'm making your point to you. I'm making your point for you.
And I spell that out to the audience because some of them aren't as smart as you, sir. Point being, yeah, people are extremely willing. Upton Sinclair, I think, said it's impossible to convince a man of something if his paycheck depends on him believing the opposite.
Yeah.
So it's just a given.
Yeah. So now I'm going to argue against my own examples. So
okay, let's hear it.
No, but I do think it's important when you have these conversations to kind of, often it's, one side says this and then one side says something else.
People who haven't read the book, the answer to how to have impossible conversations is to take both sides and not reach any conclusion.
Listen, no, okay. So for real, so I do think that there are a tremendous number of examples in which people don't want to know what's true, as particularly if it's moral or if it's emotional. They don't want to know it's true. Or, I'm also thinking of these kind of collaborator. You have sympathies with an occupation, but you know that they're killing collaborators, and you don't want to know that your Uncle Jim is a collaborator. So I think you can certainly find examples.
Wait, Peter, do you know that book, The File?
I do. I have not read it, but I'm familiar with it.
So if people who don't know, this is something I learned when I was riding the white pill. When you hear about this, it just blows your mind. When Germany got reunified, the Stasi files, which they had on every single person in East Germany, were opened. And every single former East German had to ask themselves, do I want to know what they had on me? And do I want to know who was reporting on me? And what do I do with this knowledge if I had it? It sounds like a movie. This actually happened to an entire population of people. And I discussed this in my book, The White Pill. There's a woman whose job it was to walk people through these files and prepare them. And this lady came in, and she's been sentenced to 4 or 5, 7, I don't remember how many years in jail, because she said she wanted to leave East Germany. And she reads the files, and I'm choking up actually just talking about it. And she found out it was the guy she's still living with. And she has to go home to that. And she just kind of collapses in this woman's, Frau Trumpelman was her name. And the author goes, how do you work with poison and not yourself become poisoned? So I don't know that if in that situation, that if I was in East German, God help me, when those files got opened, that I'd want to know.
Well, I was just going to say, correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't read it, but I've read excerpts from it.
That's
And
so heartbreaking.
there are many people who did not want to know. Isn't that correct?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, I
Correct,
don't know
yes.
if I would. I don't know
And
if I
so-
would.
I'd be one of them, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, would you really?
I think so.
Why? Wouldn't you want to know if like your friends were ratting you out?
Because I don't know why they're doing it. Maybe there's a gun to their head. It's done. I'm not saying this with certainty because we don't know if we're not in that situation.
It's a good point.
Sit here from the comfort of America and be like, I would, but I strongly.
And at the end of the day, are you after the truth or not? Because that's a great extreme to bring up, to be like, are you? Because it's like I really had to think about them. Like, would you want to know that at the end of the day? Yeah, I think I would say still yes, because then it really exposes who that person is. Not so much, what you are, I guess. Unless you're really going to let your emotions take over, but objectively it exposes them, not you. So it's still better to go after the truth, as much as it would hurt. That's a hard extreme, but I get it.
Feel that I'd be like, we're living in a lifeboat. People under insane pressures. I'm going to clean slate it. I think that's what I would do. I would best guess.
Well, you are a very forgiving person.
I'm not forgiving. I just couldn't handle the trauma of knowing someone who has publicly, or between me and them, been a great friend to me, has also done something which has caused me no negative consequences and now has been resolved. And I don't know why. You know what I mean? I don't know what pressures they were facing.
Are you Christian?
No, I'm Jewish. But
I think I got that wrong though. It was I thought it was like a betrayal of you, like they turned you in. Maybe I heard that wrong. It was just for other people. Oh, for other people. I can see his reasoning on that. What I would not want to know. I really have to think about that one. I'm having a hard time steel manning why the truth is more important. Because I'm thinking about like my best friend, what I want to know. If it's in the past and like he's obviously never going to do it again, he's right. What circumstance was he under? Was he under the, under the threat of a gun type thing? That does change a couple things.
Religious, particularly.
But, oh God. But does it? I don't know. That one's hard to unpack for me.
It's a very Christian attitude.
I'm not forgiving them. I'm not saying they're good
you're
people.
not forgiving. Oh, you're not forgiving.
Okay.
But I'm saying
that's kind of where I was at too.
What we want to know.
Right. What would be the point of yelling at them now, when they've been good friends to me otherwise, or sister, or uncle?
What about the woman in the book? Now that she knows that,
I think it'd be different if I got sent to jail. Then okay, we have a different situation. Then I want to know. I need to know who the rat is.
That's what I thought you were talking about.
If it's like if I was relatively fine and have legal trouble, and they were just spying on me, but nothing came as a consequence of this, I think I would prefer to. I think it's very common for people victims of trauma to be like, I don't want to revisit it.
Yeah, I guess my orientation to truth is very different. My orientation to vengeance is probably different than yours as well. But I would just want to know. I would want to know as much as I can. I would want to know everything.
But what would you do with that information?
I would completely excise people from my life.
But you don't know. But the thing is, I'm not trying to be.
No, push back anything you want.
I'm not trying to be glib here, but I think it's very different for us in a relatively free country. We don't.
It's Monday morning quarterback. Is that the phrase where it's easy to judge now, but it's you have no idea what they might have been going through at the time. If they might have been tortured. Who knows? They might have been psychologically tortured. They might have been, even at the time, MK Ultra, because even the Soviets were working on that shit too, apparently. So who knows?
I don't know what it's like when, everyone is part. I mean, that's how it works when you have these totalitarian dictatorships. Everyone has to be part of the problem. You can't have clean hands and live. So and that's kind of part of it.
No, I think you're right. There is a kind of bias because I live in a free society, and my response is given. I don't know. I just don't think I'm a very forgiving person.
But
It's not even forgiving. I don't even think I've always been puzzled by the, the Garden of Eden story about knowledge of good and evil. I just think that more knowledge is better because more knowledge enables you to make better decisions about things. I would definitely want to know if someone had ratted me out, and I would, to the best of my ability, I can't do that now because of my quote unquote situatedness, but I would take that into account for how I'd proceed in my relationships with people. But especially when you're talking about the woman who is in an intimate relationship with someone, I mean, that's the most important thing in your life is your intimate relationships.
That's a different situation. If someone sent me to jail, I'd want to know who sent me to jail. Yes, that's clearly
no, not even to jail. You wouldn't want to know if your girlfriend was ratting you out to the Stasi or to the. I mean, look. I guess this my orientation
well,
may be
the same
different.
thing.
I just would want to know as much as possible, and not even about personal relationships. I do think Aristotle's right. All people desire to know. I just want to know true things.
They don't,
and I think all men don't desire to know.
Yeah, you and I are one data point each.
Yeah, maybe
didn't we just talked about this like 10 minutes ago, I feel like.
Projecting. I mean, it could certainly be that I'm projecting. It could also be that my beliefs have become particularly squishy on things like this. And so I think I've been thinking about this lately. I think one of the things that happens when you truly listen to somebody, and as I get older, I become a better listener, is that you kind of adopt to a certain extent the framework for some of those beliefs, at least for the purpose of the conversation. So yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible that I could be wrong about that.
I'm gonna change gears a little bit because you were talking earlier about people whose voices you find crazy have been amplified. I want to hear you riff on this because something I have come to the conclusion in the last month, which I'm extremely disturbed by. I brought it up on Rogan. He didn't really kind of get into it very much.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
Well, so during COVID, there was Mark Zuckerberg's job is to keep you watching Facebook as much as possible by his own admission. And you can't blame him. That's his gig. He wants you on Facebook. He doesn't want you outside, having fun. So during COVID, we were all, and I will use the word we, in such an agitated state. Everyone's glued to their screens, first because you couldn't leave the house, but also because what's the latest news? Where's it going? What's the new declarations, what we have to do, what we don't have to do, so on and so forth. The COVID regime, by and large, went away. That data did not. And people like Zuckerberg, Elon, all these other social media magnates, they have information on how to keep your head glued to that app or that website as much as possible, as is their job. And it seems very clear to me that part of that was you got to keep people riled up. COVID was not, a puppy's friends with a duck. It was death and imprisonment and so on and so forth. And to your point, one of the reasons why I think a lot of people are following some of those voices is because they give the viewer a reason, a rationalization for that agitation. And it's an evolutionary thing because that's what feeds the algorithm.
Yeah, I think that's true. I've been spending a lot of time. I've been playing around with AI agents, and I've been spending time on Grok, and it is amazing how it flatters you.
Right.
I was aware of that. It validates you. It flatters you.
Yes, it does. I remember when I first started getting started on GPT, and it was like, oh my God, this is such a great idea. Yes, keep going with this. Don't abandon the idea. It's just like, you sure? This is kind of one of those, half-baked ideas I came up with, but you know what, GPT, you got me. You sold me. I'm going to keep going.
And I was aware of that when I was in Austin. I was at one of these Illuminati parties, and that's where I first became aware of that idea. And ever since been aware of it, I'm like, now I wrote a prompt that I have to paste every time in Grok. I'll send it to you. It's like, don't flatter me. Say, I don't know if I don't know, double check your responses, answer with skepticism. I put a tweet out about it recently, but that's literally, you're right. That's the job. That's Zuckerberg's job. Everybody's job is to keep you on the algorithm, is to keep you engaged in the attention economy. And my time on my phone is just shocking. I'll tell you what it is. It's like 9 hours a day, but most of that is work. But my time on my laptop is minimal at this point. But I don't know. I mean, I guess you could take many roads with that. Is that the problem of capitalism? Is that the problem of we haven't adopted the right um, skills to deal with these tools? Jonathan Haidt's written about that pretty extensively with social media and young kids. So I also don't think that it's.
I think was that The Coddling of the American Mind, or that might have been his other book. I can't remember what that one was.
Total time on your phone. I think it's what you do. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. I watch a lot of what I consider to be educational videos. I ask Grok to teach me about things. So I don't think necessarily the time on your phone is bad, but I do think that the capture, particularly for young girls, and Gad has written about this. Gad said, particularly for young girls, is very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
So I just think it's something that we need to be mindful of.
The time is bad if it's being used to keep you agitated. That's my point. If it was, we're 9 hours a day watching how to be friends with each other.
And hey, I'm actually pretty proud of myself. Like, I was on Facebook for a long time, like 10 full on years, something like that, just using it a lot, and there for a long time, like every day, all day. And I was able to finally break myself of that habit and get away from it, and I feel so much better. It's just like I get back on there and I see people still arguing, and I'm like, oh, I used to do that. I used to waste so much time doing this, and it's just like, I hope people, like, if you're at that point, you realize, just just do whatever you can to get away from it. It took me like several attempts. It was like 3 full-on attempts of like, had to delete the app. Then that didn't work because I would end up just going through my messenger to find it. It's like, okay, all right, just jump online and, do it, which wasn't often, but I would always find a way through my phone to do it. And then, yeah, I'd got rid of messenger, but then I was going through like Google and I was just typing in Facebook. And it was just like, all right, this is stupid. I'm just getting off of it. And I'm making sure that I'm just putting this shit down anytime I pick this up. And yeah, finally broke it, but it did take a long time, and that's how addicting social media can be. It's bad. It's captured basically everybody.
And hey, you know what? Here's a little tweet. Boom. Hey, there's an old lady down the street and she broke her hip. Hey, maybe you could give her a pie. Great. Like this, I'm making the world a better place at no cost to myself. That would be, but that's not what's happening. There's an old lady down the street who's not wearing a mask. What can you do to get her fired? So, or whatever. Now she's a racist, or she's a this or that. That is where we are. And that is something that once it gets personalized, people watching this know, like, if I'm a cereal company, one of the things they would do is they would create a mock supermarket, or maybe they'd use a real one, and they'd put their product on the shelf where it would be, and they would have people with glasses on, and you could watch their eyes to see how they shop. And so my AI, or your AI, 5 minutes from now is going to know me better than you or I know ourselves, and it's going to know what it needs to feed me to keep my eyes on the screen. And it's very clear that humans are drawn to that. If there's a disaster, like what's going on over there, oh, if there's a wildflower, oh, that's pretty, but I'm not going to be staring at that wildflower for 10 minutes.
So what do you do about it?
Kill everyone now.
I'm not advocating that.
It's about the Michael Malice solution.
I feel like I'm an oncologist, because I feel like I've diagnosed something, and then people are like, Doc, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm just a diagnostician. And I am very scared because I think the AI is moving faster than the conversations about it. Now, in some ways, that's a good thing, because I'm not a government person. And if the government's regulating the AI, it's going to serve the state. But on the other hand, I was on Gutfeld. You've done that show as well, I believe.
Yeah, a couple times.
And they were talking about, Sam Altman was saying that ChatGPT is now going to have erotica, and they're all laughing. Oh, what does erotica mean? Blah, blah. They meant sexting. And I go, guys, in 1981, John Hinckley got the idea in his head that Jodie Foster would love him if he took out the president, and thereby turning her away from men forever. Point being, there's 350 billion people in America.
That's the story behind that?
Tells you, hey, I'd love you a lot more if you took out Fauci or.
I'm sorry. That's something I shouldn't be laughing at, but Jodie Foster, I remember there was always jokes about her being swinging the other way. So it was, didn't know it was because of that. Wow. Curveball.
Trump or Kamala or Fauci or Ken Paxton or Fauci, there, you and I already have big enough audiences that we have to deal with, like, what was his name? Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss had this great 10-point article about what happens when you get famous. He goes, look, let's suppose you have 1 million followers. He goes, out of 1 million people, you're going to have 10 who are literally full-blown insane. He doesn't mean like, oh, they're kind of quirky. They think you're married. They think you're married to them, like that level. So when it's 350 million and there's some hate object and the AI is personalized to tell you, I'd love you a lot more, John Hinckley, then what happens?
So knowing that, we both know that, has that changed our behavior?
You mean me and you?
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't changed my behavior. I'm
well, I
talking
wasn't
to my AI constantly. I'm, using AI agents.
Well, I've always been in favor. I'm not gonna take out any. Sorry, feds. I'm not going to take a shot at any political figure. I guess that makes me a hypocrite as an anarchist. But I look at Charlie. I mean, I don't think Charlie Kirk's murder would have happened without social media ginning up levels of hatred toward the outgroup that had not been the norm fairly recently.
It's a good point.
Yeah, and then you're also talking about Elon wants to make non-biased AI. I'm not sure that's entirely possible, but certainly ChatGPT is far more biased than Grok, and people have done that experiment over and over again. And then you have a kind of God that you're asking questions to. Funny, a buddy of mine sent me his manuscript, and he asked me to write a foreword to it, and I said, "Dude, this is just shit." I was totally honest with him. That's a good thing about
Peter. That's the perfect forward. This is just shit, Peter Boghossian.
But that's the great thing. I'm 59. Every single person in my life who's my friend, like, I know they're my friend because they know exactly who I am and what I think, and I know who they are. Like, nobody's bullshitting anybody. Everybody's like on the same page. But I said, "How could you have created this?" And he's like, "What are you talking about? My AI told me it was great." And I just thought that was so interesting. It was just, it is just a flattery machine. And I see it, even though I put it in a prompt, "Don't flatter me," it still flatters me. But we want to be flattered. So I think that's a disposition that one has to get over.
Are you like me in that you're low in agreeableness and high in openness?
Yeah, I think so. But I think people think that you're higher in agreeableness if you're better at listening.
For people to understand watching this, agreeableness means more you go along to get along, as opposed to you're picking fights for no reason. It's not like you're just being an ass. It's just like you have to be convinced of why something is right or wrong, as opposed to I'm just going to do this because everyone else is doing it.
Yeah, and if you're younger, here's the best secret in life I'm going to give you right now. Start being utterly forthright in your speech, and the consequence of that is they'll kick themselves to the curb. Your relationships will be better, higher quality, far more honest, more loving, more wholesome.
It's so true.
Nothing bad will come of it. The more forthright you are, the better it is. But
I was blessed to have the group of friends that I did, and I still have them. Like, 6 or 7 of us, and we're still really good friends because we're all just very open with each other. And all the fakes, who knows at this point? Because that's why maybe we're too agreeable when we're younger, and we let stupid relationships take on much longer than they should, and then you miss out on some friendships that you could have had. And that's a pretty sad thought to think about, but it's very true, man. I'm very blessed to have my group of friends because we're all very open with each other, and we were just honest, and that's the only way it's going to work out in the end. So
doesn't mean you have to reveal everything. If it doesn't mean you have to reveal every dastardly.
Yeah, not everything. It's just you're just not fake. That's just as simple as that. You're just not fake with each other.
Thought, but the more honest you are, in a relationship with somebody, and the more you tell people what's on your mind and what you're thinking about, the more they'll know you, who you really are. And then, when you develop a loving relationship with that person, you'll know it's authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to co-sign every word you just said, and I will add to that. There's this great Beach Boys song I've never heard called "You Need a Mess of Help to Stand Alone." And when you're that kind of person, like you just said, when you're in a tough spot, first of all, your brain's going to tell you to go into a cave. Don't listen to it. When you reach out to people you've had these relationships with, they will trip over themselves to be able to be there for you because you haven't asked them for that before. You haven't been annoying, and you're someone who they know they can rely on because you've always been
100%.
Yep.
So I had a friend a couple of weeks ago. I was like, I just need to get out of the house. He was like, I called him. He didn't pick up. I found somebody else. And then he called me back, goes, I was going to break plans for you. Like, this is an opportunity for me because now I get to be there because you've supported me, during a dark time.
100%.
That's really cool.
But it's hard when you're young to have that perspective because people come out of the education system, which is heavily encourages people to kind of get along and not rock the boat, especially when you're starting a job. You don't have the power to kind of run your mouth. So there's this cost to it socially and professionally, but this really works long term, or at least it has for me.
So I'd like to introduce a new concept to our conversation, the idea of framing. And I think this might be the midway point between all people want to know it's true and people don't want to know it's true. They just want to do it's expedient, etc. And framing is how those truths are presented to people.
Sure.
Like how those, so I do jujitsu pretty seriously. And I had a guy on me 2 nights ago who was 215. He was a professional fighter. This guy I think he was a 2nd degree black belt. I mean, this guy's a fucking killer. And at the end of the round, I lost the round. I lost twice in 6 minutes. He said to me, he was sweating and breathing hard. He said, I really had to work hard to get you. Now, he could have just said, I mean, I got you, or whatever. I mean, I don't know, I'm 60 and he's, like 32 or something. But both of those statements would have been true, but I think the way that we frame truth is very important, the way we frame statements and how people interpret those. And I think that is also what you spoke of as the narrative component to truth.
Yes.
And so there's a way to frame that to make it more palatable to people. I also want to throw in another thing that, I was thinking about.
Wait, let me just add one point to what you just said,
please.
Which is you see this a lot of social media. You're hearing something I'm not saying. Like I always say, human beings don't run a true false filter. They run an us them filter. And if I said this to Andrew Schultz's show, if I said to you, I think Trump's a dullard and he's terrible and the economy sucks under him and I'm embarrassed he's president, I'm a Trump supporter. Because until and unless I say he's the worst thing that's ever happened to America and his existence of the world, I might as well be supporting him. That's how a lot of these people think. So it's
that's the framing. That's right.
Framing.
That's exactly correct.
Stupidly true. It's like I spent like 8 to 10 years being like, I'm not defending Trump here. It's just what you're saying is wrong. And it's just like, nope, you're a Trumper. How do you talk to these people? How do you reason with them? There is none. You can't. That's why I gave up. That's why I'm just going to sit here and laugh at you because it's impossible to get there at this point. I think we're past the Rubicon. We've crossed the Rubicon, guys.
That's exactly the framing. And so how do you frame that loss? Oh, I had to work really hard to get you. How do you frame your victory? Or how do you frame, just how do you frame things that in your life? I'm also thinking, do I look fat in that dress?
You look great, Peter.
You look great, Peter. You look great.
Well, thank you coming from you because I was really worried about how you thought I looked. So that's really good.
You should have worried.
A primary concern on my mind.
Absolutely stellar.
Yeah, thank you. It's interesting. I was on a call with a guy the other day, and it's funny. It's like when you have gray hair on your head, you've probably noticed this, and you're a guy. People ask me for advice all the time. Like I'm constantly asked for advice about shit, and I pretty much tell everybody the same thing. I give the same advice to almost 100% of the people. I tell them the following:
I will be honest, it's not just the white hair. I think it's just the way he carries himself. I really wanted to meet him like 10 years ago because he was here in Portland, and I was like, I had the chance to get up there, but that's when I got sick, was in the hospital, and moved. So that chance kind of flew away, but yeah, I always thought he was really cool because he was still teaching at the time. And I was like, man, I got to meet this guy. And he was, what did he do back then? Oh, it was the hoax papers with James Lindsay before James Lindsay went cray cray. But yeah, just some of those hoax papers I thought was one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Just getting into academia and exposing them for what they were. I remember somebody said that was evil. I was like, wow, what is evil about that? You just showed them that they're just full of shit. That's all they did, and you did it in a very, very funny way, and that's what I appreciated about it.
Diet, sleep, exercise. For diet, cut back on your sugars, probably intermittent fast. Sleep, try to get as many hours of healthy sleep, high REM sleep. I wear this little band here. Exercise, try to exercise to absolute exhaustion and failure, 6-7 days a week, 6 days a week minimum.
Fair.
And because if you don't do that, you really can't make decisions about anything. Like your ability to make judgments is severely compromised.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Every single person I've said that to, particularly if a parent dies or you have some kind of tragedy in your life, that has resonated with every single person with whom I've spoken. And I never even give specific advice anymore because I don't see that there's a point to it.
So there's the reason I laughed is there was a Seinfeld episode, and I just looked it up to get it exactly right, from 1994, where George's mom, Estelle, was talking to someone on the phone named Donna Chang, and Donna Chang was giving her advice. And then she met her, and she was white. And she's like, "You're not a Chinese woman." And this changes everything because she was expecting this ancient Chinese wisdom, and it's just some white lady's like, what the hell? I feel like I've been duped, So the gray hair definitely is part of it. Yeah. To your point, there's a great article by Josh Olson. It's like 30 years old at this point, called "I Will Not Read Your Fucking Screenplay." And his premise is, here's how it works. I won't ask you to do my teeth or fix my car or be my lawyer for free. And you don't ask me to be read your script for free because you don't want advice. You want validation.
Yeah.
You want me to tell you that you have just not been discovered, that you have what it takes, that you're great. Because if I sat you down and broke this down like I have to do with every one of my scripts, you're going to say, I'm uppity, and who do you think you are? And because in your framework, you think it's pretty good. So I also do not, that's why when you were saying should earlier, I hate that word, because I also, first of all, people I don't think are receptive to advice. And I also don't feel like I'm really in a position to give advice without knowing that other person's context, unless I'm speaking broadly, such as with sleep. That's something I do feel comfortable speaking about.
Yeah, I wonder if that same thing applies with matters of fact. Like, is there a matter of fact that there's a screenplay one screenplay is better than another, or is there a matter of fact that?
Yes.
Yeah. So if that's the case, and someone doesn't want to hear what's true, that speaks legions about their character.
Sure, but
because that will mean they'll never improve.
But or they might improve their character and thereby improve, the ability to receive criticism.
Yeah. Oh, okay. But I'm saying, like, if you only want to hear what validates and affirms you, you'll never write a good screenplay.
That's correct.
But why though?
So I guess we then need to help people. We need to help nurture the disposition that criticism is good.
No, we need to discourage people from writing screenplays because most of them can't ever do it.
Yeah, I've actually written a few screenplays that haven't gotten accepted, so I'm.
I read them. They're wonderful. They're wonderful, Peter. They're superb.
Oh, thank you. Your approbation is everything to me. But you're not going to get in my pants, even though I look good in this dress.
It's a dress, not pants. You look terrible in the pants. The dress is a different story. Folks, I have been a sheath underwear model for years now. I wear it every single day. I swear by it. The great thing about sheath is that it has 2 pouches for both parts of your male anatomy. I know. The first time you try it on, you're like, what is this? In that voice. And from then on, you're like, this is the most comfortable underwear I will ever own. I will also read to you out loud the copy that they sent me, because this makes no sense. But what else doesn't make sense is not wearing sheath underwear. So here's verbatim the copy I got. I am happy talk about a favorite advertiser on the You're Welcome with Mike Malice. I am talking about sheath underwear. Every time you hear my voice, or is capitalized, if you were able to see my face, it would be obvious that I'm wearing a pair of my sheath boxer briefs.
Any more coffee?
I particularly love the dual pouches, which is in boldface for some reason, that keep your man parts, in quotes, separated. It is a game changer. Look, here's the deal. Sheath is the best underwear you'll ever have. It's so fun. It keeps you cool in the heat. We have a problem here in Austin. You don't want to be all swampy down there. I swear by it. Wearing it exclusively for years. They also have T-shirts. I wear them to the gym. They're a little stretchy and nice fabric. They've got hoodies, which you will not find in my home. I'm not Mark Zuckerberg 2021. Here's what you got to do. Go to sheath.com, promo code Malice, get 20% off. That's MALICE at sheath.com. Use promo code Malice. Wear the same underwear I do, the best underwear you'll ever have. And then you will be happy to talk about a favorite advertiser on the You're Welcome with Mike Malice. That's right. I am talking about sheath underwear. Let's get back to the show. So let's talk. Let me get serious again for a moment.
Yeah.
You know, when you wrote your book, How to Have Impossible Conversations, do you agree with my perception that conversations have gotten more difficult to be had? I'll bring up an example that's recently happened to me. I was on Rogan. We were discussing the Epstein files. I've had people from all over the spectrum, so to speak, on this issue on my show because I'm not reading through 3 million emails. And he said, okay, it's either it's Mossad or it's CIA or somebody else. And I go, I heard it was Russia because there's a headline on Drudge, which he pulled up, or he looked it up, where it's a Moscow involvement. And George found data. And then I got, oh, you're trying to change the subject. You're CIA, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I'm just literally saying what I saw. And I was surprised to have seen that. But this is one of those issues. Trump's another one of those issues where it seems like the conversation literally is impossible because if you disagree in any way, you're actually a child toucher.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question we're in a particularly difficult period to have conversations. Even when I was growing up, I'm not saying historically, but in the last few years in particular, it's maybe 2011, 2010, I think that there's been a little easement. I think those conversations are more lubricated now because the binding of society is somewhat loosened, but it's still incredibly different. I mean, I look on social media now and people are openly talking about things they'd never talk about before. Immigration, Islamic immigration. I even hear some people talking about race and IQ. People are talking about things they haven't or they couldn't have talked about a few years ago. But Reed and I go around the world and we have conversations, kind of impossible conversations with people about really morally tricky, if not morally nasty issues. And one of the things that constantly amazes me is that the reason that people adopt positions are for what we talked about before, because they want to belong and they want to signal to community, or they adopting the position because it's a moral position and they think it's one they should hold. So that actually speaks to your point of people not really wanting to know it's true. They want to be seen as good people and feel like they're good people.
Yes.
And so then they'll give certain verbal behaviors.
Yes.
I'm actually an advocate for making your point for you and defeating myself, trouncing myself in a debate. I should employ myself.
That's where the fuck ice always came from. You hear all these like just these girls saying fuck ice, and you're like, you're saying it in such a way that all of you are saying it in the exact same way, and you see that with a lot of different narratives that come along.
To debate myself, to beat myself down.
This is you made the decision when you put on that dress. But to the question though, if we are at a point where what advice would you, as the author of that book, give to people now that we're reaching that point?
Oh yeah, it's actually pretty easy, and I've realized since the years that I've written the book, some of the things are super important and some of the things are less important.
Okay.
So if I were to condense everything down in a formula to give people a rudimentary understanding of how to have better conversations, here's what it is. Listen to understand. So your first order of business is to really listen to somebody. And I'm telling you, this is a skill. This is a skill that I'm still working on developing. So once you hear somebody or you think you hear someone, repeat back to them what you thought you heard. That's Rappaport's first rule. And what you're looking for them is to say yes, or especially that's right. That's from hostage negotiations
Okay,
literature.
can I say something? Because
Yeah.
I agree. I agree with everything you just said. The amount of people who lack empathy, meaning the ability to see things from other perspectives, is not only extremely high. I think a lot of people pride themselves on not being able to see other perspectives because I already know what that libtard's going to say is going to be stupid. So why am I wasting my time trying to think like they do?
You don't need any of that stuff. You don't need any compassion. You don't need, all
Right.
you need to do is have a curiosity about why someone believes something. That's the
Okay.
only thing you need. So you could think that they're an asshole. You could think that they're, morally heinous. You could think that whatever you want to think. But if you have a curiosity for why someone believes that, that will make an impossible conversation a difficult one. And then
Okay.
all you need is the tools to fill it out. So you listen to someone, you repeat it back to them to make sure that you understand. And then the other thing is, in the background, you have to realize that people hold certain views or will articulate certain views, either because that's why Mormons send people in twos to the door, that because they want other people to know from their verbal behavior what they think, or they'll hold a view because they, as I said, because they want to be viewed as a good person.
Yes.
They want to feel themselves like they're a good person. I want to feel
Yeah.
like a good person. Good people hold this belief. I hold this belief. Or, frankly, to be blunt, you don't really know what happened to someone that day. Maybe they got in a fight with their boyfriend. Maybe they,
right.
Were running late all day and shit happened and
Put on the wrong dress.
So yeah, put on the wrong dress, right? So okay, so then so here's you got the formula, right? So you're having a conversation. Oh, so you have a difference of opinion. So tell me what you believe. So then repeat it back to them. And then the older I get, the more I realize that the best time saver imaginable is, what would it take to change your mind on that? I just jump, before I used to go through a bunch of questions. Now I just jump right to that. And then I explore that with them. But all the while, I'm thinking to myself, is their confidence in what they claim warranted by the evidence? And if it is, maybe I should believe it too. And if it's not, well, then, what do I want to do? What's my goal in this conversation?
Yeah.
But I think that posture of having a conversation is extremely important. Just like, hey, why does someone believe this?
But I think also young. Sorry, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt.
Go ahead. No, you go.
Okay. So young people, especially people who are intellectually
now I'm going to interrupt you again. Do you see what I just did there?
Son of a bitch.
No.
That's another technique that you can use. So we both spoke at the same time, and we both said you go, and then I said you go. So that's a really good thing to let the other person know you're listening, even though I interrupted you to show you I wasn't listening. But that, like, one little thing right there is great. When you both, it's like when you walk to a door with someone at the same time.
Yep.
And you
It's
allow
respect.
them to go through. Yeah. So that's a kind of nod in a conversation that you're listening. So anyway, so go ahead.
I feel like a lot of young people, especially intellectually curious young people, have the delusion that most people are intellectually curious. And what I warn them about is, when you have these ideas about ideas, very many people's sense of identity or community or self is heavily interlocked with these ideas. And as soon as they see you as some kind of out group, they will run for the hills, and that will ruin a relationship that otherwise could have been perfectly cordial. So what I would tell people is, not everyone is as interested in ideas as you do, even the people who say they're interested in ideas. And I'll give just very quickly an example. I remember one of my first jobs, I had an issue, whatever, and my boss said, "Oh, I have an open door policy." And I asked my dad about this. My dad goes, "Look, your boss wants to think of himself as having an open door policy, and so does everybody else. But at a certain point, you're going to be the nuisance, and it will not contradict his head at all. He'll be like, I do have an open door policy, but at a certain point, people take advantage of it." So he's like, you have to ask yourself, why is this person what does this claim mean for this person in terms of their identity? Because people often say things simply like you said, because they want to view themselves or present themselves as a certain way.
Right. And my advice to those in conversations, that there are certain workarounds to this. One of the workarounds is, I was just talking about this yesterday and I gave a talk. People have really good reasons for beliefs that they have. They have really good reasons for defending a position because they've been in that situation where people have attacked their beliefs. But very few people, if any, have any good defenses for their reasons for their beliefs. They just have defenses because almost nobody asks them about, really drills down, like deeply drills down on why they believe something. And so you can prevent a conversation from becoming impossible by focusing on the epistemology, how people know what they think they know, because they won't invoke a defensive posture in those circumstances. So, and you can even have no love of ideas, or you could be a complete ideologue. It doesn't matter for the purpose of the conversation. What matters is that you keep kind of drilling down and seeing if the reasons one has, if one has extended the confidence for their beliefs beyond the warrant of the evidence. So we have this much reason to believe, but we've believed this. Often in conversations about religion, so I'm holding, for those who just listening can't see, people have this much confidence in the belief, but they only have this much evidence, and they'll say, well, faith is the remaining percentage.
Yep.
It makes the slack between what I have. And as long as they're honest about that's good, because you always want to encourage honesty. Oh, that's the other thing. Whenever I'm in a conversation with someone and they say, I don't know, I always say, that's a great answer. It's a great response.
And you're dealing with an honest person.
Yes, I was just going to say that. Thank you, Michael, because it's basically, that's how I know I'm engaging in something that's worth my goddamn time. Most of the time I can tell I'm like, you're just here to argue, or that you're there to, a lot of times too, is what they'll do is they'll willfully misunderstand things that you're trying to say. And it's like, this is a very basic concept. It's like, what the law is, right? You know what the legal system is, like legality. And they'll just be like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. So what you're saying, it is just like, okay, I'm wasting my time with this person. It's not worth the time of day. And it's just like, at least give them a little bit to like, all right, work this out. But if they're just going to keep going with it, just walk away. It's not worth the time.
Because people who are marginally intelligent feel they need that they have to posture intelligence all the time. Whereas you and I and everyone listening to this, if you know genuinely smart people, they will freely admit that the smartest person is ignorant of 99.9% of human knowledge. And that if a smart person doesn't know something, that doesn't mean he's dumb. It's just a smart person who doesn't know something, in the same way that the world's strongest man has a weight that he cannot lift, and he's still the world's strongest man.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I try to say I don't know whenever I don't know. And just actually, it's interesting, just in this conversation, I tried to make your point for you. So I find myself increasing, I find myself increasingly, but that's the other thing. It's like, why not? Like, why would I want to be wedded to my own beliefs? I mean, it's just, if nothing else, it's just interesting, and it's fun to try to make someone else's point for them. It's called steel manning. It's the opposite of straw manning. I don't know how well I did in the steel man, but I do think that it's also a kind of like meta rapport building, that people like people who are like themselves. And if I'm trying to, then I'm showing you, I'm kind of demonstrating that I'm not wedded to an idea that I have. I'm completely,
what's crazy to me is just the fact that steel man is such a foreign term to people. And I'm like, I build my life around steel manning everything just so I don't end up with a bunch of blind spots and feel like I'm like, in the end, oh my God, I was such an idiot about that. You got to steel man stuff. I find it to be second nature at this point. I don't know. I guess I've been doing it since college, so, but I feel like I've been doing it since I was a little kid. Even as a little kid, you're just like, well, your parents would be like, how do you think that makes them feel? Would it be like to put yourself in their shoes? And it's like, that's just steel manning. That's the basic concept. Maybe people are just really bad at it.
Willing to reconsider ideas or think about.
Well, to be fair, when you sign up for like debate and like ethics courses and stuff like that, and you actually have to debate things, you're given a topic, and you're actually given an opinion. You can't pick your opinion, like which side you want to defend. You're given two sides, and you're just given a side. Sometimes you get lucky and it rolls along with your biases, but the other times when you got a side where you're like, oh man, I got to argue against this. And a lot of time that's what they'll give you. It's because that's the most effective way to teach you how to do this, is to give you a side that you just don't feel like is the right side, but then you have to find all the positives to it. And then you realize, you're like, oh my God, there was a lot of things that I just had no idea. I just didn't think of it that way. One of the things was those predatory loan centers, like the quick cash or like fast loans or whatever. I remember watching my friend sign up with it, and he encouraged me to do it one time. And I was like, man, the interest on that is just ridiculous. They just completely steal from you, because it is ridiculous. But I remember that was one of our topics, and I was so firm on that stance. And they do. But then one of the ladies in there was like, one time I was in a bind and I literally had zero money and I didn't know what to do. I was living out of my car. What was like, and I was able to pay it back later. It sucked paying the interest, but I was able to pay it back later and I was able to survive that night. And I was like, that's a good example. Never thought of it that way.
And I think that's a kind of disposition that we need to spread. And that's the other thing, because you're right, because these conversations are becoming increasingly difficult, like in gaming gaming terminology, they're on hard mode. And I think that there are kind of playful ways to engage that.
Well, give me an example. What would be a playful way to engage that?
Make someone's point better than they could, or at least as good as they could, or tell them, admit that you're not entirely certain of your views, or ask them. So here's, it's very counterintuitive.
My method is always, if you can get them to laugh at it, then you can get them in a real conversation. Get them to laugh at like the simplest things. As it won't always work, because if you just say Trump is dumb, they're like, yeah, exactly, and then you're not going to get very, much farther than that. But if you can get them to find like some topic that it's like some sort of nuanced opinion, and then you get them to chuckle at the nuance, you got yourself one. You got a real one.
But if I say to you, you give like the truth thing, how confident are you on a scale from 1 to 10? You'll tell me whatever, I mean, I don't know, 9, that's true. And most people, if they place their beliefs on a scale, if they know that what they'll then say to you is, oh, well, why aren't you a 7? But what you should do is say, well, why aren't you a 10?
Right.
Like,
exactly.
why aren't you? Yeah. Why aren't you more confident? And so basically you're asking people to give themselves the gift of doubt. You're asking people to help themselves doubt. I know it's totally counterintuitive to think that way, but when you say to someone, well, why aren't you a 7 about all people, about whatever the proposition is, all people desire to know, want truth, excuse me, or what have you, then you're actually you're asking someone to make themselves more confident in what they believe.
So you wrote a book about atheism, and there's one question I want to ask you about that. One of the very big criticisms of the so-called new atheism is that there is a great utility in religion. I've seen it in several people I know who were kind of louts. Then they found God, and they became better husbands and better fathers. And that is, in my view, regardless of the validity of the faith, if it's something that's teaching you to kind of be a good person and it's Santa Claus behind it, I really don't care at the end of the day. And I don't regard myself as
really, because if the alternative is you're just a shitty person for the rest of your life, I'd rather you just roll with it. And that's kind of what I got to as well. It's like, I still don't know, but at least I'm judging everything by the fruits, and it's just like being a good person. It just leads to a better life. It leads to better things around you. And yeah, if it takes believing in God to get you there, then I'm all for it as well.
Atheist. How do you counter that criticism of atheism?
I'm not sure that criticism should be countered, because I think that
okay.
in many cases that's certainly the case. It's certainly true. It's certainly true on an individual level.
Yeah. Okay.
Of course, all of those people, I worry that they suffer from some sort of psychopathy, right? So you would need to believe, what did Hitchens say, in a celestial dictator watching your every move. I would just become that you wouldn't do a good thing just because you're a good person or because it should be done or what have you. But on a social level, it's called the substitution hypothesis.
Okay.
And the substitution hypothesis is the idea that people need certain narratives and stories. And if they don't have them, they go to crazy town, like they believe all the nonsense that we've in the United States have just believed. And so I know that Hitchens said that religion poisons everything, but I think that the we have a little space now since Hitchens' death, and we can reflect on that. And I think that the first order of business is to admit that there are certain beliefs that people would hold wholesale that are far worse than others.
Absolutely.
I asked Dave Silverman.
I was pretty sold on Hitchens 10 years ago. That's when I was kind of not part of the new atheist movement, but I was definitely following it at the time. I'm like Sam Harris, Hitchens. I think Dawkins was in that. I didn't really listen to a ton of Dawkins. He was kind of annoying, but yeah, I remember getting Hitchens' book, God Is Not Great. I think that was what it was called. And I was convinced at the time because I just wanted to see evidence. And then I started to realize, I was like, well, these guys don't really got to figure it out either, especially Sam Harris. Look what happened to him. We don't mention his name.
He's a good friend of mine, former president of the American Atheist. He's a great guy. I asked him, would you rather, Dave is like the most hardcore atheist I've ever met in my life. Like he's truly, truly like, and that's coming from me saying that. And I said, I said, would you rather your daughter be an atheist or a benign Christian? And he thought about it for a while. Or no, I think I said a woke atheist or benign Christian. He thought about it for a while, and he said a benign Christian.
Yeah, how could you not?
Which is an astonishing statement.
Yeah.
And I think right now we're so pervaded socially and culturally by egalitarianism.
Right.
And, remember all of those things, they're moral pronouncements. They're not empirical phenomena. They're not ways that we can measure or judge or diversity is our strength. That's a moral proclamation. It's not an empirical statement. And so I think we're so drowning in this idea of egalitarianism. All religions are the same. Everything is the same. All cultures are the same. Epistemological relativism. It's just nonsense. It's far better off for society if the vast swath of the population hold benign delusions than if they hold malevolent delusions. I mean, that just should be obvious to anyone. Malevolent delusions.
Yeah, if all our neighbors were Ned Flanders, we'd be in a utopia. Maybe it'd be corny, but it would be heaven on earth. You would have no crime. Your house, everyone's houses, the kids are raised good. It'll be, compared to what we have now, it would be wonderful. Okay, folks, for just $5, you could join the Support and Listeners group at malice.locals.com, where you could send in questions to the guests.
Hey, it's James Altucher. I've been an entrepreneur, investor, best-selling writer, stand-up.
So that's pretty much it, I think, for that one. There's like 5 more minutes, but let's just close up. Yeah, that was interesting. I love both of those guys, so I love it when two good minds get together. And Boghossian really hasn't swayed. He's still the same guy he was 10 years ago. That's what I really like about him. What do we got? That one is... Ooh, they're about the same. I'm going to put this on hold, take a quick break, and come back, and we'll get started on this one. Actually, you know what? I can keep the stream rolling. I'm just going to go ahead and use my trusty little... Oh, there we go. Be right back. Oh, wrong one. That's my other channel. Soon to be. All right. And yeah, and Shrouded just keeps crashing on me for some reason. Oh. That's what it did earlier when I clicked on that. Well, I'm going to back out real quick just to make sure the audio is okay, because I think I might have screwed something.